Okay, it looks like we're live now. We've got a good connection. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the My Left Eye 1K sub special live stream. Very pleased to announce we've surpassed 1,000 subscribers. Thanks a lot to everybody. Whether you're joining us as a new subscriber or whether you've been with us for a while, you're very welcome here tonight. We've got quite a lot to get through. We're going to nip straight into Keith's Fondue Lounge while we just wait for people to arrive. Don't forget to drop us a message in the chat. If you're not subscribed already, please just hit the button. Within 60 seconds, you'll be able to join us in the chat, so your comments and questions are greatly appreciated. We're going to talk about what's coming up after we take a step into the lounge. So as always on the live stream, while we wait for people to arrive, we're just going to wait in Keith's Fondue Lounge. He's got his usual guests there, some very nefarious characters, I'm sure you'll agree. In fact, there's a couple of parties going on tonight. You might have noticed that Rachel Reeves is absent from this scene of melted cheese neoliberal delights, if that's what you could say, although it's not such a delight considering the characters involved. But Rachel Reeves has got her own equally interesting, shall we say, party going on just next door. We're going to be popping there soon to see what's going on with her. There's been some breaking news stories today, mixed bag, good news and bad news. We're going to be talking about those as well as briefly touching on some of the subjects that our recent videos have been about. But once again, thanks a lot for joining us. Excuse me, we are delighted to have surpassed 1,000 subscribers just in the wee small hours of this morning. And thanks a lot for your recent comments on our videos as well. They've been coming in thick and fast. And it's been excellent to see the response on some of our videos recently as well. Just another bit of quick news about the channel and a couple of updates that we've got. We've got our membership program open now. There's some great perks that you'd be able to enjoy from just 99 pence a month. And in fact, as I just restart the clip there while we're waiting for people to arrive, we've got a new special tier on the memberships from just 99p, specifically about live streams. If you're a fan of live streams, you'll be able to get exclusive static emojis and also access to members only live streams as well. If you'd like to consider supporting the channel in that way, greatly appreciated as well. On the other tier, for just $2.99 a month, you can get exclusive videos and early access to all of our content, as well as the other previously mentioned perks on our live streams. Also, once we've got a few members together, we're going to be launching a Discord server so you can all get together and chat in our community. Thanks a lot for joining us. FSM is the dog. Is Rachel waiting for Nurse Ratchet to let her out? She may well be. We're going to be nipping over there shortly, as I said. For those of you who aren't familiar with the live stream, we just always warm up in Keith's Fondue Lounge here. That's the scene that's in front of us at the moment. Over his right shoulder, as we look at it, Peter Mandelson's there cooking something up, I'm sure. And there's a shrine-like picture to Tony Blair just next to him there. I'm sure Keith likes to get on his knees and worship Blair every morning when he gets up. But just to the left as well, Margaret Hodges, goodness knows what's going on. We can just see her head popping out there. There's a couple of random guests who seem to be keeping the distance from the three of them there, as well as the dog. And at the back, I believe that's Lisa Nandy as well. So just want to add thanks to the Agitator for getting this scene together for us as well. Credit where it's due. And thanks a lot for the congratulations in the chat. Is it Jean? Congratulations on reaching 1k subscriptions. Yeah, we're absolutely delighted. absolutely delighted. And there's been a great response to some of our recent content as well. And thanks a lot for your comments in those. Also, just a quick reminder as well, super chats are open tonight. If it gets busy and you'd like your question to get to the top of the queue, your question or your points, whatever it might be, please do use the super chats as a way to help support the channel as well. We've also got super stickers enabled and super thanks as well. And super thanks indeed to everyone for joining us on the stream tonight. We're just going to spend another minute or so in Keith's Fondue Lounge before I cut across to quite a different scene with Rachel Reeves, who's having a sort of a party of her own, and Nurse Ratchet might appear and let her out at any time. Who knows? Yeah, quite a lot has been happening since we did the last regular live stream on Sunday. It's been a busy old news week already, and it's already, well, it's only Tuesday, I should say. Good evening, David. Thanks a lot for joining us in the chat as well, and thanks a lot for the congratulations. Yeah, we're delighted. We've actually soared past 1,000 to about 1,600 subscribers at the moment. We're delighted to have reached that milestone, and some of our recent content might be helping us reach even new milestones as well, so that's fantastic. Thanks so much for your continued support and your comments as well. So Rachel Reeves has tried to throw a party of her own. I dare say it's going even worse than Keith's. I really do feel sorry for the dog and those two guests there. They might want to pop over to Rachel Reeves's, but when we take a look here, I'm not too sure. Make your minds up for yourselves, which would be worse, the fondue party at Keith's or whatever this is with Rachel Reeves and John Hurt. Oh goodness, it's quite a dreary scene there. No fondue, no buffet. Well, I guess she's running this party like she would be as deputy leader of the Labour Party if they were in government. Let us know what you think about that as well. Props to the Agitator again for those clips. Fantastic stuff. You can give him a follow on Twitter. Really do recommend it. Okay, so yeah, just a reminder that we've got the chat set to subscribers only, but within 60 seconds of you subscribing, if you want to join in the chat, you'll be able to post after just a minute. And this is all about new subscribers. As I said, we're over the moon to get past 1,000 subscribers. Okay, let's start to dive into the news and articles and clips. We're going to start with a bit of good news as we're celebrating coming past 1,000 subscribers. Unfortunately, some so-called mainstream, or now not so mainstream, media channels that favour the right wing aren't having such a good time. We're going to start with Talk TV. Unfortunately, not, well, I say unfortunately, you can't help but perhaps have a cheeky smile on your face when you find out that obviously Piers Morgan is the main proponent of Talk TV. Unfortunately, due to a drop in ratings, they're having to come off of the television and move to online only, which is a crying shame. Let's see what's happening there. Sorry, Rachel, we can't hang around. I'm afraid, you know, mustache. Got slightly better things to do. Keith says hello, by the way, from the fondue party next door. So we'll catch you soon, eh? Well, hopefully not. Okay, Piers Morgan. Not having a great day so far. Talk TV having to strip back due to a lack of ratings and move to an online only format. Let's have a look at the article that came out just today. This is some breaking news stories from just earlier. get this up one sec. So, yeah, Rupert Murdoch Network to be taken off the air and moved online. Rupert Murdoch's Talk TV network is to cease broadcasting as a traditional television channel in the summer and move solely online. Oh, poor Rupert. Poor Piers as well. Won't anyone spare a thought for them? The network launched in 2022, but has struggled to attract viewers on its linear platform. In contrast, many videos clipped up from its shows perform well on YouTube. Mostly, well, that might be down to, on part, people like me clipping them out so that we can point out what a ridiculous statement he's made. I dare say. So the article says it comes a month after its star presenter Piers Morgan also saw his show moved from its terrestrial weekly evening slot to being solely online. Scott Taunton, Talk TV's president of broadcasting, said in a briefing to staff, 2 years ago, we would not have been brave enough to launch a channel without a linear presence, but audiences of all ages have moved fast and smartphones are now the primary device where news is consumed. We need to adapt to this as a priority. So that certainly sounds like spin to me. What do you think about that? Let us know your comments in the chat as well. Yeah, just a polite reminder as well, no spam or flooding in the chat, and to be polite as well. So far during our streams, that's the way it's gone, and much appreciated for your good mannered behaviour and cordiality in that regard. Anyway, moving on back to the article. Scott Taunton added, we are therefore intending that Talk, that's Talk TV, comes off linear television from early summer, and our focus will be on streaming. Vanessa Feltz there hosts a daily early evening show, and we have certainly seen some scenes coming out of Talk TV since it appeared and is, well, now going to disappear from TV. What's the other fella called? Is it Mike Gapes? That show he's been on, it's well, it's hard to describe. It varies from just neoliberal babble to just absolute toilet spiel. It's amazing that Ofcom can allow channels like this to get away with it. It's not really news. These people, they're broadcasters, they're not journalists. They're always spinning some agenda. They've always got something to flog, and Piers Morgan is obviously notorious for his foot in mouth moments and so on. So Taunton's added that there's no doubt over the channel's future, saying it just won't be distributed on linear. Piers Morgan currently has 2.4 million YouTube subscribers, while the channel as a whole has 812,000. Talk TV, a venture from News UK, the publisher of The Times and The Sun, launched in 2022. So just 2 short years there. I'm not going to read the full article, just pick out a few finer points. We've got quite a lot to get through. Hope you all tonight. Let us know how you're doing in the chat as well. Get yourself a drink, get yourself some snacks as we go through the recent news stories and talking points here on My Left Eye. So over the next few months, just finally, it says the company plans to create a new division called New Studios to produce bite-sized content for brands such as TalkSport, The Sun, oh God, The Times, The Sunday Times, and Virgin Radio. Great. I'm sure that'll be, yeah, I'm sure that'll be worth looking out for. Perhaps not. In the briefing, Taunton also acknowledged linear channel slots cost us millions a year, and the advertising revenues are never going to materially exceed the cost of being in these distribution slots, blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, it means less Piers Morgan on your TV screens, which all in all can't be a bad thing, can it? Let us know, chat, what you think about that. Yeah, good question. FSM is the dog. How can it drop? It barely took off. Yeah, it didn't really go off with a bang. Similarly, GB News, GBBs are having problems as well. Something I spotted earlier, which we'll just go into. Just bear with me. I think this is, yeah, back in the clips. So get your small violins out for Piers Morgan, if you will. Or you could just stay with us here on My Left Eye. And thanks a lot for joining us here tonight. If you've not done so already, please do hit all of the subscribe, notification, like buttons. Feel free to use our super chats as well. That's a great way to help support the channel if you've got a question or a pertinent point. Or you might want to consider joining us with a membership if you're a fan of live streams. There's a lot of perks that you can get there from just 99p. We've got a couple of packages that you can check out as well. Please do consider supporting the channel in that way. All of your support's greatly appreciated, as always. And apparently GB News have recorded a record loss in profits yet again, losing over £40 million. Just a bit of an adage to that previous article as well. Coming up on GB News, it says, a Tory MP interviews 3 other Tory MPs about BBC bias. And of course, you've got the likes of Jacob Rees-Mogg on there. You had Lee Anderson on there. Obviously, he's been suspended. Rishi Sunak a few weeks ago did this sort of exclusive Q&A thing, which was just like a low-grade hustings with only one candidate there. And again, Ofcom just aren't doing anything about it. It's just laced with awful right-wing rhetoric, a lot of xenophobia, and a lot of lies. And the fact that members of parliament are allowed to go on the television, have their own slots on television, especially when they're getting paid more from the TV appearances than they're getting paid out of taxpayers' money to lead their constituency. It does make you question where their allegiance really is. Who are they really going to represent? Are they going to be thinking about the TV careers more than representing the constituents or looking after the country? Well, I think the short answer to that, as you all know, is yes. And we see it time and time again. And there's so many examples of that. But, fortunately, it looks as though people are getting sick of that. Viewers are being turned off. So with Talk TV moving to online only, GB News now losing money. Its owners are having to continue to cover these massive debts that they keep accruing. There's been a number of times actually on GB News where, was it Liam Fox? Liam Fox and other people, for the things that they've said, have driven away advertisers in droves, and people are getting sick of that. So a clear dip in ratings there, a dip in advertising revenue, and I guess that can only be a good thing. So that's bad news for them, but it's good news for us here on My Left Eye. Thanks a lot for joining us as we celebrate passing 1,000 subscribers, past over 1,600 subscribers now. Absolutely blown away with the response on some of our recent content as well. Thanks a lot for joining us here as we celebrate that milestone. And we hope that you'll be with us as we pass many more to come. What's Rachel Reeves up to? Let's just have a quick look back there. Rachel? It's really getting going there. It really is party central down there at Rachel Reeves's place, whatever that is. John Hurt was having a great time there. I'm sure you'll agree as we move on to some more news articles and clips now. Thanks a lot for being here this evening. For John. Robotic Rachel Reeves there. Alright, we're just quickly going to touch on what we did a video about a couple of days ago. I'm sure you've heard as well already. Unfortunately, the latest round of ceasefire talks in Gaza have broken down despite appeals from Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. We're just going to quickly take a look at what Kamala Harris had to say, but also we're going to talk about whether it's a sudden change of heart and that Biden and Harris actually want to start supporting Palestine, or whether it's a case of them actually losing the rag with Benjamin Netanyahu, and it's rumoured that they could be seeking to replace him, and we'll be having a bit of a chat about that as well. First of all, just a quick reminder about what Kamala Harris had to say over last weekend going into the talks, which unfortunately didn't end up coming to pass, that were scheduled yesterday. Israel withdrew from the talks. We're going to talk about the reasons for doing that briefly as we remind ourselves what Kamala Harris had to say. And she's the vice president of the USA, and a lot of people thought that this really meant a true show of solidarity with Palestinians, but as I said, there could be more to it than just that. Let's remind ourselves what she said. It's from The Guardian, obviously.
The immense scale of suffering in Gaza, there must be an immediate ceasefire. For at least the next 6 weeks, which is what is currently on the table.
That was what was on the table, as well as an exchange of hostages. Just quickly, briefly, want to touch on why Israel didn't appear at the talks. They claimed that it was because Hamas hadn't given them a complete list of the locations of all of the remaining hostages. Hamas pointed out, obviously, that's very difficult when they're getting bombed and shelled all of the time. No doubt some of the casualties from the bombing and shelling will have been some of these hostages as well. Unfortunately, it's a war zone. It's a war zone. And that seems like another poor excuse for them to pull out of the talks. This has happened at least twice before, where it appeared that the cusp of a ceasefire could be happening, Israel have thrown a spanner in the works again. But that's what was on the table. There are around 150 hostages being held by Hamas at the moment, but there are more than 10 times that in Israeli prisoners, in Israeli prisons, I should say. A massive amount of Palestinian prisoners in Israel.
Hamas claims it wants a ceasefire. Well, there is a deal on the table. And as we have said, Hamas needs to agree to that deal. Let's get a ceasefire. Let's reunite the hostages with their families.
As it transpired, Hamas did agree to the deal, and it was Israel who again pulled out. Just want to quickly point that out as well.
And let's provide immediate relief to the people of Gaza. And just a few days ago, we saw hungry, desperate people approach aid trucks, simply trying to secure food for their families.
Those were awful scenes as well. We spoke about that on the last live stream that we did also. Attacking aid convoys is, how low do you have to be to do that? It's a humanitarian crisis out there, the likes of which we've barely seen in living memory.
After weeks of nearly no aid reaching northern Gaza, and they were met with gunfire and chaos, our hearts break for the victims of that horrific tragedy. Yesterday, the Department of Defense carried out its first airdrop of humanitarian assistance, and the United States will continue these airdrops.
We also pointed out the people on the ground. We showed another clip of these airdrops, and the people on the ground they were disgusted. Basically, they saw it as throwing crumbs on the table, while in the meantime the United States of America continued to fund and arm Israel. Of course, they were almost insulted by remember one part of the clip where a man was holding up, I think it was like a ready meal or some sort of meal in a package, and he said this isn't going to feed 10,000 people, and then obviously went on to criticise the funding and arming, as well as the convoys being attacked, probably with weapons that would have come from America, or maybe even the United Kingdom as well.
And we will work on a new route by sea to deliver aid. And the Israeli government must do more to significantly increase the flow of aid. No.
Well, we know that they won't, though. Netanyahu won't. We're going to go into why his days might be numbered as Prime Minister at the end of this clip. But while he's in charge, you can't see anything else happening, unfortunately. Tragically, aid convoys will continue to be attacked, and the so-called safe zones will continue to be attacked.
No excuses. They must open new border crossings. They must not impose any unnecessary restrictions on the delivery of aid.
Instead of opening new border crossings, how about allowing people to return where they came from, having been forced south? 1.5 million people talking about being forced into what is now, is it now officially the most overpopulated region in the world? That's how bad things are. So it's not, the priority isn't opening border crossings, it's an end to the fighting, obviously, allowing people to return to their lands which are being occupied as they have been for the last 75 years.
They must ensure humanitarian personnel, sites, and convoys are not targeted, and they must work to restore basic services and promote order in Gaza so more food, water, and fuel can reach those in need.
As I said, yeah, that comes from The Guardian. And just to quickly go over that, you know, the United States has a lot of influence over Benjamin Netanyahu, I'm sure. Harris and Biden have probably seen the reaction from the public. They've seen week after week hundreds of thousands of people showing up on marches in America, in the UK, all across the world. They are overwhelmingly aware of where public opinion is on this matter. Perhaps this, in a sense, this speech was publicly, you don't know what's being said behind closed doors, of course, but perhaps publicly an ultimatum, a final ultimatum to Netanyahu, who has thrown the ceasefire talks under a bus yet again for at least the third time since the October 7th attacks and retaliatory collective punishment in retaliation from Israel. So America might be completely sick of Netanyahu at the moment. There are calls for him to step down coming from Israel itself, as we've mentioned before on the channel, of course. Both over how the hostages still haven't been released, as well as how the attacks happened in the first place on October 7th. Let's not forget that he was brought back in on a ticket of security, of national security. And obviously the Hamas attack breached Israel's defensive massively on October the 7th. And a lot of people asking why that happened as well. So there's calls all over the place. Netanyahu's under a lot of pressure. I think he's pretty sure he knows if there's a ceasefire, he could be going to prison, or at least he should be, for international war crimes. And he's just ridden roughshod over the whole proceedings. Again, with a ridiculous excuse about not having an itemised list of the exact names and locations of all of the hostages, which is a ludicrous request to make in a war zone such as that, as I mentioned. However, this comes from Tory Fibs on Twitter. They think the man most likely to be the next Prime Minister... Oh, sorry. Sorry about that. The man most likely to be next Prime Minister of Israel is Benny Gantz. He's currently in Washington, and this was from a couple of days ago. He's currently in Washington having high-level meetings with US politicians. You'd have to imagine that would include Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. This is being received in Israel as a rebuke to Netanyahu and a signal that the United States is seeking to bolster Netanyahu's rival. Do America know something that we don't? Could there be an upcoming election in Israel? Could there be other pressure on Netanyahu to step down outside of an election? Who knows? We'll keep you up to speed. Up to speed with that. It says, in addition, several high-profile figures in the Israeli army resigned last night as well. It's too early to be sure if these events are linked, or to say we're witnessing something of diplomatic coup against Netanyahu. I don't know if you saw on social media as well, there were massive queues in Israeli airports after Netanyahu announced that he would be introducing conscription. And a lot of people thought, bollocks to that, we're getting out of the country. Conscription in the 21st century, really? So massive queues at the airports. Israelis waiting to get out. There's a lot of propaganda obviously coming out of Israel, and perhaps Netanyahu's falling popularity is being masked by this, the overall situation itself, of course. But who knows? But if Benny Gantz is going to be a better ally to the United States than Netanyahu, does that mean that he could be more in favour of a ceasefire? Does it mean there's more chance of perhaps the next round of talks being successful? Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. Thanks a lot for joining us in the chat tonight as well, everybody. Anthony Nicholas, thanks a lot for the congratulations as well. You're very welcome to be here tonight as well. Please do consider joining our membership as well. If you're a fan of live streams, you can get some exclusive emojis, exclusive live streams for just 99p a month. It's a great way to help support the channel, and thanks a lot for your continued support, everybody, as well. Let us know your thoughts about this. Are we about to see a change in leadership in Israel? Some sort of coup, some sort of official deposement of Netanyahu? Let us know your thoughts. Quick reminder as well that we've got the super chats and super stickers open if you'd like to get your question or point to the front of the queue. Yeah, I'm trying. I will do my best to keep up with everything in the chat while I'm managing the broadcast software as well. So, thanks a lot for your support. So we're going to move on now. Obviously, George Galloway has had a lot of attention over him recently. We did a video about that recently, and we have picked up a lot of the subscribers that took us over 1,000 from that video as well. If you're one of them, thanks a lot for joining us. Whether you're a new subscriber or you've been with us for a while, you're very welcome here tonight. If you're not already subscribed, please do hit the button. Within 60 seconds, you'll be able to join the chat as well. Just wanted to remind new arrivals in the chat about that one. So we'll have a look at Galloway being sworn in, and then obviously he called out Sunak in a massive way in a speech outside of Parliament. There's been some controversy around things that he said at a news conference as well, which has been deleted by Sky, or it was removed from the news pages on BBC and Sky as well. But we've got some of his speech from outside Parliament, which I'm not sure if that came before or after the news conference as well. But he also, if you've seen our most recent video, appeared on Not the Andrew Marr Show as well, where he called for some form of alliance with Jeremy Corbyn. How likely that is, what kind of alliance it might be, we'll go into in a bit of detail, but just a couple of reminders about George Galloway getting sworn in. I just want to quickly show you the clip of that again. There's quite a bizarre moment where he's walking towards the speaker to sign his name in the book before he goes and talks to the speaker, but he passes Michael Gove, who's sat on the front bench, and he proceeds to make some sort of ceremonial nod, but he's the only one that does it, and it's kind of strange the way that he does. And it's weird because Gove's been pretty quiet recently, but that's another matter entirely. So let's see the footage of him being sworn in first.
Order, order. Will members wishing to take their seats please come to the table?
Lindsay Hoyle's been a bit quiet recently as well. We might see what happens on Wednesday in PMQs, but just wanted to point out, after all that hoo-ha the other week, he definitely kept his head down in PMQs last week.
I swear by Almighty God that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles, his heirs and successors, according to law.
We've had quite a few comments about this ceremony as well. This obviously happens for any MP who's sworn in, but it just goes to highlight this archaic system that we've got, this 17th century system. This is still technically the King's Parliament, of course, even though the King or Queen, whatever it is at the time, isn't supposed to have any influence on Parliament or vice versa. We do, of course, see that happening. And it's just pretty silly how people still have to get up there and swear to the King.
Help me God.
That bit there, that bit, just where it, I mean, what was that? No one else along the row does it apart from Gove. He thinks, I don't know, maybe he thinks it's some part of the whole tradition and the pomp and ceremony that you're supposed to do that. But that just sort of stuck out a bit. Anyway, then he just signs the book and goes over as a quick word with the Speaker, who tries to get friendly with him, but I'm sure that Galloway's no more a fan of Hoyle than I am, probably. But let us know what you think about that. Yeah. And then we'll quickly see what Galloway had to say outside of the House of Parliament when he was calling out Rishi Sunak. Hello, Lindsay, you massive shithouse. Okay, I've got to go. Right, bye. Yeah, sorry, can't stop. Speaking of which, we'll just see how it's going. Rachel, how's it going? Oh, no, it's still the same. No, still the same. Still not great. Party's not got going there yet.
It's clear to me that Sunak has identified Muslims and Gaza as the proximate centre of that wedge issue that he intends to use as perhaps his only hope of re-election.
Of course, he's referring to this awful speech Sunak gave outside of number 10 last week, following off the back of Galloway's win in Rochdale, of course, with talk of protesters being labelled extremists, people who go on pro-ceasefire Gaza marches as extremists, and ridiculous. We're seeing so much, you know, think about what Lee Anderson said recently as well. When you think about that and this, and there's a lot of race baiting going on. I think Galloway's right in what he's saying here about coming up to the next election. That's all the Tories are going to be using in terms of tactics. Xenophobia, stop the boats, and now Islamophobia, and it's disgusting. It's so underhanded, and it's a real disgusting form of politics.
It's quite clear that there's going to be a raft of measures that will take away still further freedoms from the British people. Freedom to speak, freedom to assemble, freedom to protest and to demonstrate.
We have, of course, also had the Public Order Bill, which has very spurious language where protests can be stopped within moments. It's not just coming from the Tories as well. Also, Starmer would be no better, I think, in this regard. We know what he thinks about protests. We know what he thinks about strikes and pickets and his threats of deselection for anyone who does stand alongside union members who are on strike and that kind of thing. So it's not just the Tories as well. It's Keith.
And if they had their way, freedom to elect people that the establishment doesn't like. That was also the meaning of his rather embarrassing, impromptu performance outside number 10. And what do I mean by a wedge issue? They want to force Starmer either to stand up and defend the democratic rights of the British people, including the rights of its religious and ethnic minorities, and if he does that, I'm a Dutchman, or to engage him in what will turn out to be a Dutch auction of nastiness. If he chooses, as I suspect he will, the latter, that's going to allow us and independent candidates to pick up potentially millions of votes from those who treasure the free rights that we have enjoyed since the Second World War.
And since Galloway's victory in Rochdale, the Workers' Party of Britain have seen quite a few people come forward and put themselves up as candidates as well. I've been saying for a while now, on my left eye, that I think at the next general election you'll see some surprise gains from independents and grassroots parties. It looks as though we could be seeing the initial murmurings of this coming to pass. Unfortunately, my predictions about the phony culture war and the xenophobic tropes have turned out to be true as well, obviously, with what Galloway is referring to, what we've heard from Sunak and the likes of Lee Anderson recently, who of course was only suspended for refusing to apologise, and then we saw a series of Tories going on to news programmes and refusing to say whether what he said was racist, and just the repeated comeback of what he said was wrong and unacceptable, etc. But you're all too familiar with that by now, of course. Just a quick reminder as well, if you'd like to support the channel with a membership, you can do so from just 99p. That'll get you exclusive access to live streams and our static emojis here on this stream, as well as every other one that we do, including our regular Sunday evening slot at 7 o'clock. So please do consider supporting the channel in that way. We've also got super chats open and super stickers in the chat. If you want your question or point to get to the top, please do consider using those. Or if you'd like to make a one-off contribution, you can gift memberships to other people in the chat as well, or you can go to our Buy Me a Coffee page. Links are in the description. Thanks a lot for your continued support and for all of your comments in the chat and on our recent content recently as well.
In this country, and who wish to defend the Muslim communities in Britain. Either way, that suits Rishi Sunak. So that's what I'm predicting here. The next election will be about Muslims and will be about the taking away of civil liberties in this country. It's Sunak's last hope. I pray for the social peace of our country that it's a forlorn hope.
I think he's right there, and when the right wing get desperate, and the Tories certainly are desperate at the moment, that is when the real xenophobia starts, trying to pit working class people against working class people based on race, ethnicity, the colour of people's skin. It's disgusting, and we've seen it before in the past. History is tragically repeating in that regard, and we really do need to make sure that both the Tories and Labour get a good hiding at the next general election. Obviously the Tories are desperate, they know that they're going to lose seats. Starmer's assuming it's going to be a walk in the park for him, which might not be the case, as we're going to be talked about shortly as well. First of all though, I just want to quickly remind you about that Sunak speech that Galloway was alluding to there, and if you were with us on our last live stream, you'll have seen this clip from a comedian on Twitter called Tez. So he's done a great parody of Sunak, Dishy Punak, and to spur everybody the 11 minutes, he's pretty much summed up what Sunak said in this little clip. So we'll go on to Galloway's appeal to Corbyn on the Not the Andrew Marr show, after we just remind ourselves, in summary, what was said outside Downing Street. Over we go to Dishy Punak.
Hey, it's me, the Prime Minister of the UK, and you know things are serious because I'm outside my house, in the rain, in the mist. People are shouting at me and are giving you no notice. Why am I talking to you today? Because of democracy. Me, yeah? I love democracy. I love democracy so much I wasn't even voted in as Prime Minister. That's how much I love democracy, to make sure I'm standing here today to tell you how much I love democracy. And if I say enough, that means I love it. You know who doesn't like democracy? People who don't agree with British foreign policy. Because yeah, you might think democracy might be about choice. It is, yeah? Do what you want, but within a very narrow parameter. What the politicians and mainstream media tell you to do. Vote for like between 3, max 5 parties. If you vote outside of that, you think outside of that, that's extremism. And I don't like that. And look, I'm one of you lot. But brown and black people, think, yeah? Don't bite the hand that feeds you. If you protest against British foreign policy, that's Islamism. That's quick maths. Stop using overhead projectors in the middle of London. We don't like that. Yeah, people don't like that. If you want to protest a genocide, then do it politely. Politely. That's the main thing of how to be British. And also, listen, I don't want to lose my job, man. I like this house. It's mortgage free, this. No rent, nothing. Come on, man. I'm only 544.
Yeah, so do check out Tez on Twitter as well. Great stuff from him. But he summed it up perfectly, you know. Sunak's clearly rattled by the Rochdale by-election, as well as the continued support for Palestine that walks past his house every Saturday up Whitehall. He's seen increasing numbers in the hundreds of thousands every week. And Starmer's jumped on board as well with that and echoed Sunak's sentiment shortly after, which is appalling. But now it's been shown that people do have a choice between the two main parties, whether you get a Tory and a red rosette or a blue rosette or a yellow rosette at the next election. And there could be more to follow, which Galloway's held an olive branch out to Jeremy Corbyn to try and do. I'm not too sure about the likelihood of Galloway and Corbyn coming together in some sort of coalition. But we're going to take a look at the clip from the Not the Andrew Marr show, where Galloway asked Corbyn to get together.
I don't know why he has procrastinated so long in making a final total break with Labour and leading something himself. If he was here now, I would say to him, you saw what happened last night. Set up, announce an alliance of the remaining socialists in the country. You lead it. I'll support it.
Jeremy Corbyn, of course, has the Peace and Justice Project. People have asked and pondered for a while now as to whether he'll turn that into a political party. Corbyn still has a tremendous amount of support as a politician, of course, despite what the mainstream media will have you think. If he's standing as an independent, which is currently the status at the moment, if he's standing in North Islington, he will undoubtedly still win it by a clear margin. I've got no doubt of that in my mind whatsoever. But at the moment, he's not representing any party. Obviously, Galloway is representing the Workers' Party of Britain. He wasn't standing as an independent. So we'll have to see what happens. At the moment, Corbyn hasn't responded to this. He's not hinted whether he would be turning the Peace and Justice project into a political party either. So at the moment, there's nothing happening. The question's been put out there. We'll have to see.
You be the leader, and let's go. Time is running out. The general election might be 3 months from now. And I wish I knew why he had procrastinated, because if he left Labour at the moment that he should have, at the peak of his powers, he'd have taken a couple of 100,000 people with him. And that's a force. You know, not many parties in Europe have a force like that. He could have led it. And he must avoid being a wasting asset.
If he did form a party, if Corbyn did form a party, I'm sure that he would be able to get those kind of numbers. Just look at a couple of years ago when the Enough is Enough thing came out, which unfortunately nothing's really come of that. They had nearly 500,000 people signing up for that, which was amazing. So I have no doubt that Corbyn could get those kind of numbers if he formed a grassroots political party, yeah.
He is a very considerable asset, and everyone loves him. But he should be careful that he doesn't waste the remaining opportunity that exists. If he won't, then we will. We'll run ourselves. We'll support independence where we don't run ourselves. And we'll do that. But we'll be weaker because of the absence of Jeremy Corbyn at the head.
There are a lot of things that Corbyn and Galloway would disagree on politically as well, I'm sure. I don't agree with everything that George Galloway says, far from it. He obviously does a huge amount to support Palestine. He's been outspoken against other wars, such as the Iraq War as well. but there are things that I disagree with him on. I'm not going to go into that just now, but my point is that they're not exactly massively well aligned, Galloway and Corbyn. If they did get together, they would have to put a lot of differences aside, that's for sure. And a few people have really speculated as to whether this could happen or not. I've seen a lot of comments in the video that we put out yesterday, really encouraging this to happen. A few people think that it's not very likely. I have to say, personally, I don't think it's very likely that would happen. If we're assuming that this next election is going to be in May, as is highly rumoured to be the case, then I don't think it's time for this to happen. There's not enough time, whether Corbyn wants it to happen or not. He has, of course, been in the news recently as well. He's launched legal action against Nigel Farage. We're going to touch on that very shortly as well. We're going to see the latest. And a lot of people have also wondered why Jeremy Corbyn has taken so long to take legal action against people who tried to smear him as an anti-Semite over the last, 9 years really, ever since he took over the Labour Party way back in 2015. My goodness, doesn't it seem such a long time ago now, of course. So we're going to go on to the next clip now, just before we touch on to that news story about the lawsuit. And there were, of course, a few Tories doing the news rounds, just going back to Sunak's speech, trying to back up what he said. And this is one of them. But it's just equally pathetic now. And we see it all too often, obviously, when any Tory Prime Minister makes a statement, they all come out on social media with the almost word for word like responses, and that counts for TV appearances as well. So Bir Mafalami made an appearance recently, and this is his attempt to get his nose down the back of Sunak's trousers as well.
Look, I think it was an appalling spectacle, really, for our democracy, what happened in Rochdale. But he has rights. He's been elected.
He won the vote in Rochdale fair and square. Pointed out before as well, I'm sure that you're aware, that our current Prime Minister wasn't elected. When a previous Prime Minister sits down, it does not force a general election in this country. Of course, we don't have written constitution as such or anything that can make that happen. So for the Tories to come out and say that what was a fair and square election, are they implying that there was some sort of corruption going on? It was a fair win. Whatever you think of Galloway, it was a fair win. Let's remind ourselves that an independent came a solid second as well, with a decent 6,000 votes. The Tories came third and Labour came fourth. And then just after that, I believe it was the Reform Party. So it was a fair and square election, but for some reason the Tories want to act like it's a threat to our democracy just because it didn't go their way. Shameful. What a bunch of shite hawks.
By the people of
why do you
Rochdale.
say? Well, I mean, it was a democratic election.
Yes, it was.
So he's perfectly entitled to.
He is, but I think that sort of divisive rhetoric, the behaviour, and frankly from the Labour Party as well. I know you're asking me about George Galloway, but
Divisive. Didn't Rishi Sunak stand in front of 10 Downing Street and pretty much label everyone who goes on a Palestine march as some sort of extremist? Now that's divisive language, if you want it. Try looking in the mirror. Try looking at your own party. Instead of trying to defend Sunak with this awful rhetoric, trying to defend your own party with this absolute crap. This is what narcissists do. They accuse other people of the very things that they're doing. That's part of the gaslighting as well that we see week in, week out from this Tory party.
I think that we're only in this position because of really the behaviour of the Labour Party in relation to that. And look, we are where we are, and hopefully this will be an exception rather than something that grows.
You guys are not without guilt. I mean, we've seen what Lee Anderson has been up to the extent where he's had to have to be suspended by.
And this, oh, there wasn't a Labour candidate, that's why this happened rhetoric. That's also complete trash as well. The Tories finished above Labour. What is he talking about? It was a Labour-held seat, of course, before the by-election was triggered because Tony Lloyd died. Tony Lloyd voted against a ceasefire last November. Perhaps that was in people's minds when they went into the ballot box, as well as the way that Keir Starmer rode roughshod through parliamentary procedure just a couple of weeks ago with the amendment on the motion put through by the Scottish National Party. Do you maybe think that might be what people were thinking about? It's not the fact that had Azar Ali won, he would have then sat as an independent candidate. It still said Labour next to his name on the ballot because it was too late for the party representatives to be changed on the ballot by the time he was suspended. But they finished above Labour. What is he talking about? It wasn't even a Tory seat before. He's acting like it's sour grapes, as though Galloway's taken the seat away from the Tories. That's how rattled they are by this, the established parties, the blue Tories and the red Tories.
The Prime Minister. What did you make of the Prime Minister taking upon himself to actually speak to the nation outside Downing Street on Friday evening, I think it was? I mean, it's only the second time he's done that, and the first time was when he was elected as Prime Minister.
It's because he was rattled. We all know he's absolutely rattled to buggery over this. So is Keir Starmer. People are showing that independent candidates can win. And that's why it was the only time he stood outside since he was elected. But let's see what Bim's got to say about it.
The truth is that the Prime Minister feels very, very strongly about this. And he is, the first non-white Prime Minister. I think that he definitely sees a responsibility he has to promote the hugely positive multicultural democracy that we have.
Ludicrous. Ludicrous. What he said was pure race baiting. It was pure race baiting, misassociation, xenophobia. It's unbelievable for them to come and make statements like this. Even Kay Burley knows. Even Kay Burley knows that it's absolute rubbish.
But that is only there when, broadly speaking, society behaves in a sensible and grown-up way. And there have been some worrying signs over the last few months, particularly since the October 7th attacks in Israel, that have shown that things are going in the wrong direction. I think the Prime Minister felt very strongly, and felt the need to call that out.
Yeah, I mean, people...
He's rattled by the protests. He's rattled by the fact that voters do have a choice. And that's it. That's the long and short of it. And now they're panicking and they're hitting the big red button that says launch a xenophobic hate campaign. See if that might keep us in office. Let's just appeal to far-right racists. And let's try and take away people's right to protest and people's right to use their voices and call for a ceasefire in Gaza. Because that's what it really is. Let us know your thoughts in the comments as well. Just a very quick reminder as well. Hit the subscribe, notification, thumbs up buttons and all of that. You can help to support the channel in a few different ways. We've got a new tier on our membership packages for just 99p. You can get exclusive live streams and access to our static emojis. The more members that we get, the more static emojis that we can add as well. The more members that we get as well will get us further towards launching the Discord server, which you'll be welcome to join us on as well. You might also want to use our super chats or super stickers, which are live now. You can gift memberships to other people in the chat as well if you'd like to support the channel that way. or for a one-off contribution, please do go to our Buy Me a Coffee page. You can see a link in the description for that. Thanks a lot for joining us tonight on the Let's Talk live stream. Just a few more words from this interview before we move on.
We'll say he hasn't been elected, but of course he was elected by MPs. So there, for people, to save you.
Was that really a so-called professional journalist who actually made that statement into the camera there? He was elected as leader by MPs. When we say that he's an unelected Prime Minister, we of course mean that he hasn't stood as Prime Minister in a general election, which you know that's what people mean, Kay Burley. Are you just plain dumb, or are you actually dumb? For a handful of Tory MPs to decide who's going to be the next Prime Minister and not have the public have a say is no democracy whatsoever, even within this outdated first-past-the-post system that we've got, which is bad enough as it is, without this kind of thing, that we don't even get to automatically go to the polls when we get a new general election. If we did, then maybe the Tories might think a little differently when you consider how many prime ministers that we've been through. And Sunak isn't just the only one who's got in unelected. Of course, his predecessor, Liz Truss, as well. That shouldn't be allowed to happen. It's nowhere close to a proper democracy whatsoever. And it's not just the Tories that are in trouble, of course. I mentioned recently on the channel that in Keir Starmer's constituency there was a council by-election, not a parliamentary by-election. Should point out where the Greens have taken the seat from Labour. There's also a very strong independent candidate in Starmer's seat in Holborn St Pancras, called Andrew Feinstein, who has been on some of the marches in London and made some brilliant speeches there as well. He's got a lot of support behind him. We're going to hear from something that he had to say in a meeting, but this just goes to show that it's not just the Tories whose seats are at risk in the next election. Labour certainly need to be looking over their shoulders as well. And I do have to confess, I would love it if Andrew took this seat from Keir Starmer. I'm sure a few of our viewers tonight would as well. Let us know what you think about that in the chat, which of course is open to subscribers only, but that's just a 60-second setting on there. Within a minute, you'll be able to join others in the chat as well. Let us know your thoughts. So this is what Andrew Feinstein had to say.
About him is we know when he's lying because his lips are moving.
So he's talking directly about Keir Starmer here. Just to let you know, just for context.
Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing we know about him is that since the moment he arrived in the constituency as our putative MP, he has brought division, disunity, and a reactionary politics. He has got rid of everybody across our branches in the Labour Party who is vaguely progressive. And
of course, if we need to remind you that more Jewish Labour members have been purged under Starmer than any previous leader for their stand Israel, for criticising Israel, for supporting a ceasefire in Gaza, for supporting Palestine, and other spurious reasons as well.
Only people who still have offices in the Labour Party in his constituency are ultra-loyalists. He did that in his constituency. He has run the Labour Party in exactly the same way, and he will run our country in the same way. He is anti-democratic, and he is a real threat.
Of course, he got in off the back of a heap of lies. He acted as though he was going to continue the kind of policies that Labour had under Jeremy Corbyn, democratic socialist policies, nationalisation, for example, of utilities, of transport networks, a Green New Deal, the 10 pledges that he made, all he promised would continue that democratic socialist Labour manifesto. They, of course, have been trashed. He's done a U-turn on all of those promises and many more since, including the £28 billion green energy pledge. There's not going to be any investment in infrastructure under Labour. There's not going to be any nationalisation. There's not going to be a Green New Deal with increased renewable energy and more green jobs. He's thrown it all out of the window. He's thrown democratic socialism under the bus. And Andrew is completely right in what he's saying about here. This has been what's been going on since day one. And I'm a firm believer that Keir Starmer was only put into the Labour Party by the likes of Tony Blair to do exactly this, to ruin it from within. And now he's showing his true colours as an open Zionist, for one, as a neoliberal Thatcherite, for another. You would think that the leader of the Labour Party, when questioned who his political influencers have been, who he admires, that he might come out with the likes of Clement Attlee, or perhaps even his namesake Keir Hardie, as we've said before. But no, the very first name that came out of his lips was, of course, Margaret Thatcher, and that is what you will get with Labour this time around in the general election, a neoliberal Thatcherite. And there's going to be more privatisation and less public investment, and a whole heap worse, more than that, believe me.
To our democracy, to our civil rights, and to our civil liberties, in the way that Lindsay was saying. When there is a campaign in the constituency, everybody will know about it. Everybody will have the opportunity to come and give their thoughts and to give their contributions in human time to a campaign to unseat Keir Starmer. That is the assurance I can give you today. But we're going to do it in a democratic, grassroots manner.
Absolutely. And the very best of luck to Andrew as well. Definitely keep our eye on that seat come the election. That might be in May. Who knows? It's still not been officially announced by Sunak. Some people are thinking he might drag it out until a bit later on in the year. But when it does come around, that's definitely going to be an interesting seat. As I mentioned, it wouldn't be without precedent. We've just seen the Green Party take a council seat in the very area that Andrew's going to be contesting Keir Starmer as well. So if people come together in a similar fashion, imagine if Labour do edge a win. I don't think they're going to get a massive outright majority at the next election, you know, for reasons that I've already said on the live stream, because of people like Andrew Feinstein, George Galloway, and other independents as well. I don't think that they're going to get a massive majority, as I said, and if they do get a minority government and Starmer doesn't even win his seat, well, wow. How amazing would that be? We'd have to see what would transpire. That, of course, would mean that they'd probably have to get a different leader of the Labour Party. Remains to be seen. And just want to quickly point out a recent poll from Bristol where we're seeing similar things happening as well. So this is a projection from February 2024. The Green Party, 51% would take the seat from Labour, who get just 39%. I've said before, I do always take polls with a pinch of salt. Apart from exit polls, of course, they tend to be quite accurate for a few reasons. However, this is just the latest information on that. So that's a 9-point loss for the Tories, but a 20-point loss for Labour as well. That's huge. That's huge, and a 25-point surge for the Greens. Of course, I've made mention that I think the Greens and Independents will make some surprising gains in the next general election. Perhaps we're starting to see that coming into fruition as well. Remember, you always heard it here first on My Left Eye, and I just call it like I see it. Thanks a lot for joining us tonight in the chat as well. Just going to read out a couple of comments as well. David hopes that Andrew beats Keith. Holborn and St Pancras deserves a decent MP. Absolutely. Thanks a lot for joining us here tonight, David. You're absolutely right there. I would love to see that as well. Jean says, defeating Starmer in Holborn St Pancras is the only way to get rid of him. Yep. Doesn't look like there's going to be any leadership challenge coming from Labour at the moment. You could probably count the amount of decent MPs on one hand these days. You've still got the likes of Zara Sultana, of course, Barry Gardner, who we feature on the channel, of course, a few others. I think Yasmin Qureshi's not too bad. She quit her front bench position over the abstention on the ceasefire, back in November, and over 60 councillors quit over that as well. We've seen a lot of people actually really stand by the moral beliefs, including those people who are mentioned as well. John McDonald is another one. But unfortunately for the vast majority, it's just full of people who will toe the party line, full of neoliberal careerists, Tories in red rosettes, and they don't want to upset the apple cart or upset Starmer. I do apologise. Slight slip of the tongue there. They don't want to upset him, so there's probably not going to be a leadership challenge coming anytime soon. So that is really the only way to get rid of Starmer. If you're in that borough, if you're in that constituency of Holborn, St Pancras, please do go out and consider voting for Andrew Feinstein. I tried not to say go and vote for this person, go and vote for that person on the channel. Of course, I'm not here as any kind of advertising agency for any specific party at the moment. I try and keep it as neutral as I can. Obviously, this is a left-leaning channel that talk about socialist issues and socialist politics, of course, but in terms of individual parties, I don't want this to just be a sort of platform for anything. David also said it'd be nice if Labour wins without Starmer and his ilk. Well, if the whole lot of them went and it turned back into a democratic socialist party like it should be, obviously. Yes, and Martin Arnold, good evening. Thanks a lot for your congratulations as well. Of course, we are delighted to have surpassed 1,000 subscribers. That's why we're here tonight on a Tuesday, outside of our usual Sunday night slot, which of course is still going to be ongoing. But as I mentioned, we're going to have some exclusive live streams through the week for our members as well. So you could become a member and enjoy those live stream perks as well as static emojis from just 99p. So please do consider joining us and helping to support the channel in that way. We've also got super chats and super stickers open tonight. If you'd like to use those, that support would also be massively appreciated. Thanks a lot for all of your comments in the chat as well. Do my best to keep my eye on the comments as well as the streaming software this evening. I will get a notification if you use a super chat though, so, and I will definitely read out all of the super chats, 100% guaranteed. As I said, all contributions greatly appreciated, and thanks for staying cordial and not spamming or flooding on the chat and all that. Okay, on to Corbyn and the lawsuit with Farage now. We'll see how that seat works out in Bristol Central when we do get around to the general election, whenever that's going to be, but we're going to move on now. Nigel is going to find himself subject to a lawsuit for some utterly awful comments made on GBBs recently, and deservedly so. As I said, a lot of people have wondered why Corbyn hasn't sued so many others, the likes of James O'Brien on LBC and so many other MPs as well have gone down that anti-Semitic trope rabbit hole over the years, and the fact that he hasn't taken more legal action against it, people are saying that he's made certain claims, or that he's said certain things, or that he believes a certain way, and it's all lies, of course. It's all a complete scam. But perhaps things are starting to change, as we can see. So we're just going to go to the original clip. It's not too long, about what Nigel Farage said about Jeremy Corbyn on GBBs. And of course it's absolute rubbish, it's absolute bunkum.
I said the Jewish community in North America had been massively successful in law, in business, and yes, they did campaign for what they wanted. They did it within the law. They did it quite successfully, but I was never a subscriber to the madcap conspiracy theory that the Jews run the world.
That is, of course, a madcap conspiracy theory. But what follows here is just beyond words ridiculous.
But I tell you who was. Yes, Jeremy Corbyn, the Labour leader that you supported.
Wow. Wow. When in his entire life would Jeremy Corbyn ever have said something so utterly ridiculous? Not only does, of course, he not believe that, he doesn't believe that, he would never say anything like that. You can't just throw spaghetti at the wall, Nigel, and hope it'll stick. We have libel laws in this country. And that is purely defamatory. It really is. And of course, he has to go on the likes of GB News to say this kind of crap. It is unfortunate that he still gets so much attention on the mainstream media as well. This is a guy who stood for Parliament 7 times and has lost 7 times. But still he gets so much airtime. Jeremy Corbyn's been the MP for North Islington since 1983. Since 1983. And Nigel Farage has never been in once. He's been an MEP, of course. But you just can't get away with that. I hope he doesn't get away with this. That is clearly defamatory. And we'll see Corbyn's reaction here. On Twitter. He says, I've asked my lawyers to take the first steps in commencing legal proceedings against Nigel Farage. One sec. Sorry about that. Following a highly defamatory statement about me, which you just saw, of course, we are a movement of, for peace. We cannot stand by and let these disgusting and malicious lies go unchallenged. A few people have asked, as I said in the comments for this video that we put out, which became public earlier today. Of course, do check that out after the stream if you've not done so already. But they're wondering why he hasn't taken more legal action. And I know that he's a busy guy. Obviously, he's got his Peace and Justice project. He's obviously an MP. He's a dedicated MP. He's not just the type who shows up for the salary. Do you remember during the expenses scandal as well? He was rock bottom of the list for MPs claiming expenses. So he's not just there to lord it up. And he does a great amount of work in his constituency and with his Peace and Justice project. He goes all over the world and meets other people from organisations, other democracies. And I'm sure he's got his hands full. If he had a legal case against everybody who'd said something defamatory, he would just be suing people for a living. But he actually genuinely is a decent person and wants to make a difference. So he probably doesn't want to get bogged down too much in that, and he will select who he does choose to take legal action against very carefully. It's not without precedent either. In fact, in the picture there, Farage is pointing to a previous case where Corbyn has taken legal action and been forced to make an apology and retract their statement, but this time I really hope he's going to take Farage to the cleaners, because this anti-Semitic race-baiting political football crap has got to go. It's got to go. For a start, as I've said before, it detracts against actual cases of anti-Semitism, which are of course disgusting, but you can't just point to someone who you don't like politically and accuse them of such things. You definitely can't point to someone and call them an anti-Semite just for criticising Israel. You definitely can't call someone an anti-Semite just for going on a peaceful march to support Palestinians or call for a ceasefire. It's getting beyond ridiculous. And this has been going on, as I said, for 9 years, since 2015, since Corbyn came into office. Farage, other people in the Labour Party as well, have sought to bring Corbyn down with this absolute nonsense, this absolute garbage. It's pure trash. It's pure trash. And the fact that people are still trying to flog this dead horse, I think, really just shows how they think everybody came down with the last drop of rain. It is condescending. It is patronising. and they just keep throwing the spaghetti at the wall and hope that it'll stick, but it won't. And unfortunately, now, since Keir Starmer's taken over the Labour Party, he's had to try and appear as though he has made some sort of success as a leader and uses this turn the party around line over and over, almost as much as he reminds us that his dad was a toolmaker, his mum's a nurse. And we keep hearing, I've changed the party. He's changed it from a democratic socialist party into a neoliberal dumpster fire and nothing else. He's purged so many Jewish members himself purely for criticising Israel. That's the real anti-Semitism, and it's coming from Keir Starmer. And there was a lady in the audience on Question Time recently when David Lammy made an appearance, and she really did call him out on this as well. And he had to sit there and sweat and squirm. So let's just take a look at that appearance as well. But people are getting wise to this now. Unfortunately, they weren't as wise to it before the 2019 general election as they should have been. They're probably distracted with issues like Brexit and such, but obviously this was going around a lot before the 2017 and 2019 election. Certainly had some impact on the result, that's for sure. But she really puts it to Lammy really well. Just look at his face. Yeah, that's the truth. Don't like hearing the truth. I'm surprised that Fiona Bruce didn't immediately leap in front of the camera like she has a reputation for doing. This audience member, this lady's been allowed to speak at length, which is great to see. Lammy having to squirm. Absolutely you are. And she's right, it is pure McCarthyism. It really is. Just his reaction there again. There was that flying around as well, of course, that there are certain no-go areas for white people in Tower Hamlets in London. And that's, of course, just as ridiculous a notion as the anti-Semitic tropes, or trying to label every Muslim as an extreme Islamist, or in fact anyone who goes on a protest march as an extremist as well. She's absolutely spot on. This lady couldn't be more on the nose, 100% bullseye, speaking it like it is. And she just couldn't help herself. She just couldn't help herself but interrupt. I'm surprised she got as much time as she did to speak there. Lammy banged to rights, of course. He's in the LFI, Labour Friends of Israel, also abstained on a ceasefire back in November. Need we remind ourselves one of the reasons for Labour's intervention with the amendment on the SNP's motion was, of course, to hide a rebellion within the party. They were expecting a lot of MPs to actually vote for the motion rather than abstain, which they would have, of course, been instructed to do by Keir Starmer and the whips. But they also didn't want SNP's motion to go through, which called out Israel as committing collective punishment, inflicting collective punishment on the Palestinians, which is another reason why they tried to railroad that. But that was a fantastic statement there from that audience member on BBC Question Time. We got through as much as we could without Fiona Bruce interrupting. I'll spare you Lammy's response. Just wanted to show you that clip there. His response, of course, would have been just absolutely robotic nonsense, as we see. And it's right to call out the truth anywhere you see it. And someone else who always does that is the member of the European Parliament who's featured on the show before, Claire Daly, who's made some really impressive appearances lately and some fabulous speeches alongside Mick Wallace as well, who's fantastic. But we're going to hear a couple of clips from Claire Daly.
The European Investment Bank has approved loans of 650 million for Israeli infrastructure since the launch of its latest genocidal attack in Gaza. To give you an idea of the scale of what that represents, it's the equivalent of 90% of the EIB's total investment in Palestine since its first loan in 1995.
Wow, that's obviously clearly biased. They've given more money recently to Israel than to Palestine since 1995. Incredible.
From 1995 to date, it's invested more than $2 billion in Israel, compared to $725 million in Palestine. At the same time, we've seen countless examples of Israel destroying EU-funded projects with impunity in the West Bank, assets worth hundreds of thousands of euros, funded by countries like Ireland, being routinely destroyed by settlers. You've even managed to approve a loan to Israel's Leumi Bank for $240 million in December, the same bank which has frozen UNRWA bank accounts. I'm wondering at this stage as to whether you're actually complicit in genocide.
Well, you can't help but wonder. Obviously, the finance comes into this, the aiding and abetting of finance, and clearly, as Claire Daly pointed out there, with those cases, that's been heavily biased towards Israel as well. Here's another clip from one of her recent appearances.
On the 26th of January, the International Court of Justice ruled that there's a plausible risk of genocide in Gaza. It ordered Israel to stop killing civilians. Israel continued. So the legal obligations on EU member states are very clear. The Genocide Conventions require states to avoid complicity. The EU common position on arms exports bans exporting arms where there's a clear risk they'll be used to violate international law.
This is one of the worst things about this. We in the UK are also complicit in this. We've got so many domestic issues, but there's always a bottomless pit of money for war, and that we can contribute such massive amounts towards war and death, while at home millions upon millions of people struggle as well. We want to be on the right side of history, more importantly. It's awful to see your own elected representatives contributing toward this sort of thing with your own taxes. And in Corbyn's speech at one of the protests a few weeks ago, as we showed on the live stream, he was absolutely right. The UK government could find themselves being complicit in all of this. We could find ourselves at the International Court of Justice over this, not just Israel. And so could the United States of America. A lot of people think that rightly, both we and the United States should find ourselves subject to those kind of investigations and proceedings.
And the UN has warned that such transfers must cease. Yet, France dissembles, hiding behind secrecy and Israeli assurances, while Germany has increased its exports tenfold last year, 90% since October 7th. Ireland doesn't even ask Butcher Biden what's coming through Shannon Airport from the US on the way to the Middle East. What sort of people are ye? In 1982, arch-conservative pro-Israelis Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan stopped arms to Israel during a war. But in 2024, European Greens, Social Democrats and Liberals are arming a genocide. Shame on ye. International law and humanity requires lethal arms to Israel. Must stop now.
Absolutely, shame on them. Shame on them indeed. Claire Daly is consistently brilliant. Yeah, thanks a lot for the comment in the chat as well. 100% bang on. Always great to see her telling it like it is. But going back to David Lammy and the Labour Party as well, when you call it out like it is, like Claire Daly does, like that Question Time audience member did as well, if you do that from within the Labour Party, you will find yourself immediately purged. And we're going to take a look at an article which came out today in, unfortunately, the most recent example of that. A Sheffield councillor has been suspended over anti-Semitic tweets claim. Peter Price has been a councillor for more than 50 years. And of course, we're seeing this ongoing conflation of criticism of Israel with anti-Semitism, which is appalling. So he's been suspended over alleged anti-Semitic posts on social media. Peter Price, who represents Shire Green and Brightside, has been a councillor for more than 50 years. The 85-year-old has apologised for reposting some comments, but said he would appeal against his suspension. He denied he was anti-Semitic. Labour said it could not comment on individual cases as its disciplinary hearings were confidential. Mr Price remains a city councillor, but has had the Labour whip removed. He didn't mean to upset people, he said. I'm sure he didn't, and he's 85 years old, and he's being purged as so many others have. As Starmer, sorry, keep making that slip of the tongue, continues with this ridiculous purging of the party. And I've mentioned before on the channel, the first inklings of this came into my consciousness, at least, when he suspended Rebecca Long-Bailey for sharing a Guardian article that had been written by Maxine Peake, which contained a paragraph criticising Israel. It appears that Peter Price here has been suspended purely for he's retweeted something on Twitter, or he shared something on another social media platform. Not exactly sure what it is. The article doesn't say, but that could be a similar kind of case. It's just what I'm pointing out. He says he's very uptight and distraught about what's happening in Gaza. It's terrible seeing children being bombed, and he felt something had to be said. So I shared a few pro-Palestinian tweets, but someone took offence to them, and apparently I crossed a line. I'm not really anti-Semitic. Being called that has been the worst part of all of this. I'm quite upset by it, as I've been a councillor for 52 years. He's been a councillor for 52 years. Although the Labour Party said it would not comment on Mr Price's case, a spokesman said Keir Starmer has changed Labour so that it is unrecognisable from the party of 2019 and has pulled out anti-Semitism by its roots. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Shall we remind ourselves of the actual facts and figures here? Of course. Under Jeremy Corbyn, there were over 500,000 Labour members, well over 500,000, going on 600,000. Out of all of the investigations, when the dust has settled, despite all the accusations being made, a total number of 2 people had disciplinary proceedings brought against them. Most of the people being accused weren't even members of the Labour Party, let alone Labour MPs, councillors. I used to be a Labour member. In my time in the party, I never saw any anti-Semitism. Racism comes from the right. It always has come from the right. It always will come from the right. It does not come from democratic socialism. Democratic socialists aren't racists. It's just not an acceptable part of socialism, which is about coming together of societies. What Keir Starmer has done is unbelievable in the negative sense. And it's so tragic to see a once great party come to this. The spokesperson said, "We will continue to fight anti-Semitism. It has no place in the Labour Party or wider society." How about you start at home? Excuse me, just taking a drink. How about they start at home and stop the purging of members? Says Mr Price was due to stand down at the next council elections in May, so he wasn't going to be standing. But regardless, well, for that to come as he stood down, perhaps to retire, that this has happened, and they've tried to sully his reputation, tarnish his reputation. Really had to feel for this poor guy. Just the latest victim of Starmer's purge against the left wing, against critics of Israel and supporters of Palestine. It's unfortunate to see, really is. We're going to start to bring the live stream to a conclusion tonight, but thanks a lot for joining us on our 1,000 subscribers special. Thanks a lot for all of your views and shares, for helping us to reach that landmark as well. Thanks a lot for all of your comments. Thanks for staying nice and polite in the chat. Just a final reminder that if you'd like to get some exclusive live streams as well as use our emojis, you can get onto our live stream membership package for just 99p. That's available now. If you hit the join button, please do considering helping to support the channel in that way. That's a massive way to help support us, so thanks a lot for that. As we grow in number, we'll also be adding people to a Discord server where you can talk with other members of our growing community. Also, thanks for your comments on our videos as well and our recent content. Thanks a lot for checking them out and sharing those around as well. So we will have another members only live stream to come during the week, and that's one of the benefits of joining the channel. And we'll be back on Sunday as well with our regular Sunday evening slot for the regular My Left Eye live stream. So we'll be seeing you there as well. It's been great to see some familiar faces as well as some new people here on the live stream tonight. We hope you'll join us again on either the membership stream or the regular stream on Sunday night. Thanks a lot for all of your comments and points as well. We'll just quickly check in with Rachel Reeves and Starmer before we head off. See if things have gotten going there. No, it's still not looking lively there. Yeah, this has definitely been a better party to come to than Rachel Reeves is. And please do spare a thought for poor John Hurt there, who goodness knows how he's ended up in this situation with Rachel Reeves. And as always, we'll see the show out with a parting visit to Keith's Fondue Lounge, just as I give some more thanks and shout outs and say goodnight. Alright, just a final thanks for being here tonight as well. Thanks to everyone in the chat, BK, Jean, David, FSM is the dog, Martin Arnold, Bees Monk, thanks a lot, take care of yourself. David, yeah, good night to you as well. Thanks a lot for your comments, thanks a lot for your support as well. Hit the notification bell if you've not done so, and keep sharing our stuff around. Thanks a lot for helping us get past 1,000 subscribers. Been delighted to see our channel growing as well. We'll hope to continue to do so and bring you more landmark live streams as we progress. So just a final thanks on that. You're all fabulous people, sending lots of love, peace and solidarity out to every single one of you. So I hope you enjoy the rest of your evenings, and we'll be seeing you soon on My Left Eye. Take care everyone. Take it away, Keith.